So excited to have Alice Waters here. This is really a big deal, so I don't want to belabor comments too much longer. There's a couple things I just have to say. You know, the leadership team and a core group of people, and you guys know who you are. You met for 8 months, and you put in tons of time and hours. You know, when we started this initiative, we ended up putting in 3,406 hours in terms of people just meeting over and over and over again. Each of our meetings had an average of 425 people, and you know, at the end of the day, it takes all of us collectively to do something really remarkable. So again, if you wouldn't mind just giving our leadership team and our core team another round of applause. So, you know, Mayor Adams talked about it. You guys know I'm really competitive. That's putting it mildly. But I stood on this stage and said 8 months ago that I think we had a chance to make history together. And it's why we were in this particular edifice, because this is the California History Museum. And I felt like Sacramento many, many years ago, 1849, is where we discovered gold in this region. And I felt what was similar to discovering gold was discovering green. I think that we have so many natural elements and components in place that really do give us a leg up on other regions. And it's not to say we're better or worse, but all the mining in the world won't help you discover gold if you don't have it in your area. We actually have some significant advantages in our community. And I'm going to start with the first one is our state policies are very aggressive. And around the country, you know, you think about the federal standard, the bar is very low. But California has done a great job of creating policies that are very aggressive. AB 32, we just withstood Proposition 23. So Governor Schwarzenegger, certainly Governor-elect Brown, are also very committed to that. Secondly, our competitive advantages as it relates to our natural resources. Agriculture, water, trees, our climate. I mean, we're sunny 320 days a year. That is a huge advantage, wind and water, which you know. And then our geography, the fact that we're close to the state capital. So we have some things that really set us apart. And then lastly, our region works really well together. We have six counties and 22 cities. I see Mike McKeever out there from SACOG. But our region works really well together. And ultimately, if we don't create a regional economy, if we don't try to come up with policies that our whole region collectively agrees on, if we don't look at UC Davis as part of our region, and Sac State, and go out to Elk Grove and Roseville, and east to El Dorado and Folsom, our region is what separates us from other places. And that's kind of our commitment. So over the last 13 years, we had an 87% green job growth, which is #1 in the state, our region. Also, we got about $300 million of stimulus funding in our region. Sacramento, in terms of solar installation per capita, we're #1 when it comes to any other metropolitan area in the country. So there's a lot of things already going on, which made me believe, why can't we transform Sacramento into the Emerald Valley? Why can't we be the greenest region in the country and a hub for clean technology? There's no reason why we can't. We just got to stay committed and work together, and we've got to put our petty politics aside, and we've got to do what's in the best interest of our community, and that is to diversify our economy. On one hand, we want our environment to be green, but we get a chance to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We can also use this as an opportunity to diversify our economy. And that, to me, is what's really exciting. So both environment and economy coming together to make Sacramento really a leader in this country. It's exciting. And as a mayor, to be a mayor at this time, everyone talks about we're all elected officials at the wrong time. I actually don't believe that. I think we're elected officials at the right time. It takes people to solve problems. You can't do things the same way and expect different results. We've got to be innovative. We've got to find ways to do more with less. And that's what our commitment has been up until this point. And I look out here and I see a lot of you folks that have been involved in this green movement for many years know that we're standing on your shoulders. This didn't just start today. It started much longer than I've been mayor. So I'd like you to think that all of your work is really paying dividends. It's culminating at a very important time here at the California History Museum. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment. It's an honor for me to be a mayor. And there's one person I want to bring up real quick before I introduce our speaker. Phaedra, do you mind coming up real quick? This lady, she runs an organization called Green for All. And her name is Phaedra Ellis Lampkin. She's a CEO. She took over from what Van Jones did. And I'll talk about Van Jones maybe a moment before I introduce our last speaker. But she has a bi-coastal commitment. She's in Oakland in the Bay Area and back in Washington, D.C. She was on our leadership team, and she couldn't be here as often as she wanted. So she sent different people from her staff that came up every month to make a commitment. And when I talked to her back in D.C., I said, our last meeting's in December. Do you mind coming out? She said, somehow, some way, I'll find a way to do it. And I asked her, what were some cool cities when it comes to green? What city did she say? Portland. True story. And she probably won't admit this, so I will say it as if, well, yeah, I am telling what she said. I said, like, what do we need to do to be at the forefront? She says, you got to be a little cooler in Sacramento. She goes, Portland is just so hip. They got a hip mayor, and I'm thinking. So nonetheless, she's honored her commitment. She had a board meeting in San Francisco today, and she moved it around to come up. She just got here. Let's give a warm round of applause for Phaedra.
I want to tell you what a treat it is to be here. You certainly have a very hip mayor. I did not tell him he needed to be hipper. Kind of a little, but not. It was really in terms of policies, not in terms of his hip factor. I want to be really brief because I'm excited to hear Alice speak. I think what's so important about Sacramento, I'm from Sassoon, which only in this room will know where it is. And so when Kevin talked to me, I was like, oh yeah, because then I'll get to be home. And so it's really a thrill to be here. But I wanted to say how important I think this work is, because I do think there's incredible places like Portland, and we're working in Seattle and other places across the country, but very few places where you see people of color who are really struggling to be able to think about how to be part of this new economy, and there's incredible opportunity in Sacramento. And I think the people in this room, I think Kevin's leadership is really about thinking about how do we create an economy that works for all of us. What's important is this is the beginning of a new economy. And the question is, will we create opportunities for other people to participate? This is like if all of us had watched the high-tech economy, but we kind of skipped it. And for a lot of our communities, we were left behind. But now there's a chance, from energy efficiency to biofuels to transportation, to think about what's this new economy and how does it work? And I have to tell you, at Green for All, our goal is to take the vision that Kevin talked about, that Van had, but to really make it substantive, which is to say, how do people get real jobs? How can people say that a result of a green economy, they know their life is better? And Sam, I think you heard from in Portland, who's one of our favorite partners, and you think about the fact that 60% of people working on those projects are women and or people of color, to show people that there's a sustainable model for building the economy. And I think that's what's critically important. So I just want to tell you really how thrilled I am to be here. I'm always thrilled to be on 80, and our team missed the exit, and I knew how to get here. So really, it's a joy to be here. But really, it's a place to actually get to see the manifestation of all of our dreams, because those of us who grew up in this community, thinking about places like Sacramento and Sassoon and other places being the hub of an economy that brings all people into it, and that also kind of bends the arc of justice. And because we have a moment, not only because you have a mayor that's incredible, but because we have a president who's making a greater investment in this kind of infrastructure than ever has existed in history. So if we as a room, don't say, here's what we have. We have a movement that's hip and cool, which doesn't often happen in social justice. We have a moment where we have resources, which also doesn't happen a lot in social justice. And we have a moment where there's the beginning of a new economy, and we're in positions to kind of write the rules of the economy. And so this is a moment, I think that Kevin is right, that is historic, that is important, that will really yield, I think, incredible results. So I'm really just thrilled to be here, thrilled to be part of any panel that Sam, Alice, and Kevin are on, and really just happy to be here. And I will see you all in the future. We have made a commitment to figure out how to be here so that we hope we see more projects where 60% of people are people who have struggled or people who don't get to work on these projects, and we get to see a reduction in pollution at the same time. So thank you for having me, and I'm thrilled to be here.
All right, thanks, Phaedra, very much for all you do as well. So we've had a lot of speakers. The governor and the first lady were here in May, and then the next month we had a young person named Alec Lors, who's gone on to create a 1 million kid march called I Matter on Mother's Day of 2011. So a young person talking about social justice and young people making sure their voice is heard. We had Van Jones here, who obviously Phaedra works very closely with, talking about where our community needs to be, and it essentially is to embrace the greatness that you guys are already doing. If you can't tell your story, certainly people aren't going to be able to listen, but you have a story to tell. And then we have Gavin Newsom, former mayor, or I guess he's still mayor, but future lieutenant governor, talking about the work they were doing in San Francisco. Then we had Tom Friedman here. I hope you got a chance to hear Tom Friedman, who did an unbelievable job sharing what he thought was most important. And then last month we had Bobby Kennedy Jr. here. So we've had an illustrious list of speakers who've all come into Sacramento and told their story. But we felt that when you look at the 5 policy areas, energy, urban building, we talked about clean tech already, waste and recycling. We thought the water and nature piece would be the last one to have a speaker speak on. And we started thinking about who would be the best speaker to talk about agriculture and those sorts of things as it relates to our natural resources. There was one name that bubbled to the top above all other names. And I didn't know if I could get her to come. Took me a couple requests. I'm pretty persistent. I didn't even have to twist her arm when she found out that I went to UC Berkeley, which is her alma mater. Paid off that I went to Cal in this regard. Let me give you a little bit of background, a short story, and then I'll bring her up. She comes to us from New Jersey a few years ago. I won't say the year. She ended up in Berkeley, went on to study in France. She said she found her calling in France, which is very interesting. In 1971, she opened a restaurant called Chez Panisse, which will be celebrating 40 years next year, which is amazing. She's got the James Beard Award, which is essentially the award of awards for chefs. I don't think there's any award that she has not received. In 1992, she was really committed in terms of talking about the White House doing vegetable gardens in communities. It started in 1992. It took till President Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, got in office and listened to her. So her relentless voice has fallen on the right soil finally. And we do proudly can say that we do have that garden and that edible schoolyard and that commitment at the White House. She has a project that I hope she talks a little bit about, and it's the edible schoolyard project and what she's doing. I asked her at lunch today, I said, give us a charge and a challenge that when a year or 3 or 5 goes by, you can point to Sacramento and say, they not only met that challenge, they exceeded it. She said, that's exactly what I'm going to tell the audience today. So again, whatever it is that she says, we're going to have to collectively figure out how to make it happen. She's the mother of American food, a pioneer, an activist, certainly as Sam Adams talked about, believes in the access to sustainable food, and she talks about it's a right and not a privilege, and that gets to the social justice component. We had lunch today with our top chefs in our area. We had about 30 of them in the room. That was a pretty impressive group here. You guys all know Mulvaney's and Randall's. I don't want to list them all, but all the best that we have in Sacramento. We're all in a room, and they all said, as they introduced themselves, they all said the same thing in common. When they pointed to our guest speaker, they said, I am cooking because of you. Now, how strange is that? That these folks have been cooking for 10, 15, or 20 years, but it all traces back to one person and her commitment and what she's done. So let me just say this as I bring her up. I went to UC Berkeley. You guys know that. What neighborhood did I grow up in? Oak Park. We ain't eat French food in Oak Park. So let me just I just gotta get real quick. So when I French food was like French fries when you from Oak Park. That was about as far as you could take the French thing. So I'm in college and I'm in my last year, and a teammate and I, we went to college for 4 years. His name was Chris Washington, and we both started on the basketball team for 4 years. And there was a guy who worked for the Oakland Tribune named Dave Newhouse. And Dave Newhouse said, you know what, I've admired you two for all these years. I'm going to take you to lunch. And I'm like excited and, going to go eat some burgers and things that I'm familiar with. or Flint's Barbecue. And we went off the beaten path down Shattuck.